Hello, and welcome to the People Who Read People podcast with me, Zachary Elwood. This is a podcast aimed at better understanding other people and better understanding ourselves. You can learn more about it at behavior-podcast.com. Last week I did an expose of Chase Hughes. Chase bills himself as the number one expert in behavior and influence, and he's known by a lot of people for his work on the YouTube show, The Behavior Panel. He's appeared on Dr. Phil and other things. But his background is full of obvious deceptions, both large and small. Deceptions so bold and weird that to me, it veers into the pathological when you consider how unlikely it would be for someone to expect to get away with such things. In this episode, I'll give a quick synopsis of that work and then talk about some of the angry responses I got from some fans of Chase Hughes and the Behavior Panel. Their angry responses are kind of interesting. They're good examples of how emotional and psychological investment in people or ideas can make people really resistant to seeing things clearly. We can feel a desire to lash out when our sense of meaning or our, quote, team is threatened. Most of those angry comments I received came in the form of comments on my YouTube video, so you might enjoy checking those out for yourself. And I'm sure there'll be some more of this kind on this video. This topic is the gift that keeps on giving. I think there's a documentary to be made out of this stuff, honestly. Lots of interesting video material to use from Chase's past and present. And yes, I'll be doing more episodes in the near future on these topics, specifically about the content of what Chase Hughes teaches and some of the things discussed on the Behavior Panel. There's a lot of stuff to talk about. I also want to point out that I'm getting over some sickness now. I worked way too hard on that video last weekend, working some late nights, and that resulted in me getting sick, so I just wanted to apologize if my voice or demeanor seems a bit rough, but I did want to get this out while it was fresh. When I made the last video about Chase, I wrote a synopsis of the major points on the blog post for that episode. If you want to read that longer synopsis, go to behavior-podcast.com to find it. That's a easier way to consume the information than watching that hour-long video. But I'll quickly summarize the most important aspects of what I found and why it's important. Basically, Chase Hughes has a long history of deception going back to 2007 when he was selling his Redshift vitamin supplements and his pickup artist book. He claimed his vitamin supplements were being used by the armed forces in America and were internationally known. Using specific time range searches on the internet, we can find there's basically no mention of that product online at that time. And only 4 years after deceptively promoting his vitamin supplements in 2012, Chase set up his chasehughes.com website where he aimed to sell behavior and influence products and training. Just as with his vitamin supplements and his earlier pickup artist work, he claims to have all sorts of secret knowledge in terms of being able to read people in extremely improbable ways and even control people's minds. For people who know anything about behavior and psychology, his claims are off the charts absurd. It's obvious that even Chase eventually realized that those claims were absurd because he removed most of the more absurd claims from his site as time went on and he got more real-world attention. I just can say thank God for the Internet Archive because without the Wayback Machine which they run, we wouldn't have those old copies of his websites. The Internet Archive is the true hero in this, and you should consider donating to them. Just as with Chase's vitamin supplements, from almost the very beginning, he's claimed worldwide renown and expert authority in the behavior and psychology spaces. He's made all sorts of claims about doing training for large organizations and military groups. He's made claims about his work being used in all sorts of research and media purposes. And this is the important part. He's almost entirely invisible online. If you leave out the interviews he's done for podcasts and other shows, you can verify this yourself. Go use Google custom time range search and look for mentions of Chase Hughes between 2010 and 2020 and tell me what you find. Where are the mentions by military organizations or leaders or any kind of large companies or media people or behavior people or pretty much anyone outside of being interviewed for podcasts. There's a lot more, but there's really so much to get into. It's hard to briefly summarize it, but that's kind of the gist of the important points. His claims about the things he's supposedly accomplished are smoke and mirrors. And I have even more details about Chase now than when I made the video. For one thing, I found another site of his, ChaseHughesTraining.com, which is no longer public, but makes some claims about his service in the Navy and his military intelligence work that contradict other things he said and other things that people who have interacted with Chase have sent me in the last few days. For example, one person told me that apparently Chase avoids telling fellow Navy people his military occupational specialty when asked, his MOS. And this is apparently a pretty strange thing to avoid telling fellow Navy people. But I'll save those details for a later day. None of this avoidant behavior is really surprising if you know about his many deceptions. But if you worked with Chase in the Navy and know about the work he did, or if you've got any other interesting stories to share about him, feel free to reach out to me on my site, behavior-podcast.com. So I thought it'd be interesting to read some of the negative comments I got from Chase Hughes fans in the aftermath of this. The thing that's interesting about these comments to me is the amount of emotion people have around this. These are good examples of how our emotions can twist and distort our perspectives. When we like someone or when we're invested in something, it can really prevent us from seeing things clearly. I think this basic psychological dynamic relates to so many things in our lives, from something as banal as how we may too readily excuse bad behaviors of our friends and family, all the way to more darker versions of that dynamic, including extreme political polarization and tribalism, and even cult psychology. Some of the rather extreme emotional responses and lashing out from Chase Hughes fans reminds me of how fans of political leaders often lash out when those leaders are criticized, no matter how measured and reasonable the criticism is, just as it's similar to how cult members can lash out at criticisms of the cult leaders, even when that criticism is reasonable. And these things often have a personal dynamic. Our bond to someone can make insults to them seem like insults to us. That's something I've thought a lot about in the political arena in my work on political polarization related topics. Then there's the element of how investing our time and emotions into something can lead to us getting angry when the meaning of those things is threatened. I have a previous episode about threats to meaning. It was one of my favorite episodes, talking about how we can become destabilized when our sense of meaning is threatened, and how that can manifest in the form of lashing out and seeking to punish those who threaten our narratives. If you'd built up a narrative where Chase's ideas are a big part of your worldview, and especially if you've actually spent a good deal of money on Chase's products, it's easy to see how learning about his many deceptions would threaten your investments and your narratives. It could make you feel like the rug had been pulled out from under you in a major way. This destabilization might make you seek to lash out to try to defend that meaning in those narratives. You might, as they say, seek to punish the messenger and try to show why I'm the faulty one. How this is not a story about Chase, but about me. And you'll see a lot of that in the comments with people insulting me and questioning my qualifications. One interesting aspect of how this played out in the responses was a few people who tried to analyze my minor gestures and behaviors. These behavior analysis fans have seemingly embraced a faulty worldview where people's minor, trivial, nonverbal gestures contain a lot of meaning. Instead of focusing on important facts and thinking critically about those facts, they spend their time worrying about minor gestures, trying to use ambiguous behavioral ideas, not to find the truth, but in service of filtering for minor things to help defend their existing views and biases. Some of these behavior analysis fans have been taught to think that they're in possession of some secret powerful knowledge about behavior. And this is part of the appeal of this behavior analysis and psychological influence space. Just as in the case of cults, who also traffic in secret powerful knowledge, people invested in these ideas don't take kindly to that sense of meaning and power being threatened. And again, to be clear, if you're Chase Hughes or behavior panel fan, again, I'm not saying you're in a cult. I'm just saying these sources of bias and cognitive dissonance are all around us for so many things, big and small. I think as time goes by and more information comes out, you'll come around to seeing Chase Hughes the way he deserves to be seen. And when that day comes, maybe you'll be willing to reach out to me to tell me how your views changed over time. I'm interested in how and why people change their minds. And I've already had a few people who started out angry at me and then later, when they looked at the evidence, apologized to me and agreed that this was important that people should know. Since releasing the video last week, I've also had some people who've been in the Chase Hughes and behavior panel circles reach out to me to volunteer information. Some of them described some toxic patterns in both the fan circles and also in the social media moderator circles. They described a rather cult-like bullying atmosphere where any criticism or disagreement was dealt with very harshly. One person said that the behavior panel moderators are closely connected to Chase Hughes. A couple people described the use of fake accounts to criticize and denigrate people like myself who criticize the behavior panel or Chase Hughes. For example, one person said that a Melissa Runt, who left an insulting comment on my YouTube video, was a social media content moderator for the behavior panel. Another person formerly in that inner circle said that it was possible Melissa Runt was a fake account actually run by someone who goes by Sober Sadie online. Another person said that some of the people involved might reach out to me pretending to be people with complaints about Chase Hughes in order to gain my trust and deceive me or keep tabs on what I was doing. I was warned about several accounts specifically. I don't know the truth about all these things, and honestly, I don't really care to know all the details. The relevant takeaway really is that there seems to be a kind of toxic and cult-like dynamic going on in these circles. And I'll also say that all this isn't that surprising to me. Chase Hughes comes from the neuro-linguistic programming world. A lot of the dumb influence and manipulation ideas that he's spread in his books and other resources come from the NLP world. And I've had some experiences in that world before. Back in 2008, I worked for 6 months for an NLP seminar guy. I never was a believer in NLP stuff. There are a few okay ideas in the mix, but mainly it's a lot of bullshit and exaggerated claims. I took that job mainly because I thought it would make for some interesting stories. And it sure did. I could talk for a while about those experiences, and I may do that in the future. But long story short, I saw a lot of the same narcissistic and deceptive and immoral behaviors, both from the NLP seminar guy and the people in his circle. They were able to justify these bad behaviors because in their minds, they were doing such amazingly good things. They saw their, quote, mission, which is what the NLP trainer called it, as so important that they were justified in doing whatever benefited that mission. And this is the same dynamic that reigns in any group that feels at war with the world, whether political or religious or whatever. They persuade themselves that the ends justify the means. This is how they're able to keep seeing themselves as the good guys, even as they engage in insults and character assassination and lies. Another interesting aspect to all this, the people in these manipulation-centric worlds think that they're much smarter than they are. They basically drank the Kool-Aid of believing that their gurus and they themselves have amazing people reading abilities and amazing powers of influence and manipulation. For these reasons, they aren't able to see that their machinations and strategies are childish and silly. They don't see that all the psychological trickery and complex fake spy bullshit in the world can obscure people doing obviously bad and deceptive and bullshitty things. Sorry guys, Chase Hughes isn't going to magically Jason Bourne himself out of this scrape. You're not secret covert operatives. This ain't the movies. It's not Scooby-Doo. I'm sure it's fun and all, but time to face the music. And I'd fully expect that some of these people are digging into my past to try to find something to discredit me, even if just to hurt me, even if doing that doesn't matter at all to helping Chase Hughes' credibility and public image. And if someone listening to this is trying to do that, let me save you some time. You won't be able to find stuff in my past to hurt me. Unlike Chase, most people don't go around deceiving people all the time. So you can just skip ahead to making stuff up about me if you want. I'm trying to save you some time. Another interesting thing about the Chase Hughes and behavior panel fans and moderators, they're almost entirely women. For example, when I was perusing one of Chase Hughes' recent posts on Facebook that had hundreds of comments, about 95% of the responses were from women. Pretty much all of the accounts marked top fan on Facebook were women. And I think this relates to the true crime audience demographic and also to the celebrity gossip demographic. A lot of the people who follow the behavior panel and Chase Hughes are into true crime stuff. That's why they watch the behavior panel. And it's known that's made up primarily of women, that demographic. A lot of the fans also seem to be into celebrity gossip. For example, I saw one fan of theirs frequently asking for more analysis of people in the royal family, and that demographic also skews highly female. This demographic aspect of the fan base can also help explain some of the YouTube comments I got that talk about how charismatic Chase is, and even some that reference his attractiveness. Just to say there's some interesting dynamics going on there. Okay, so I'll read some of the YouTube comments. And again, what you're listening to now, if you're listening on audio, this is a YouTube video originally. So I'll be sharing the video of this as I scroll through them. So the video might be more entertaining than the audio. As you listen, what patterns stand out to you in these angry and defensive comments? What deductions can you make about the people leaving them? Leave your comments in this video about these comments. Here's one. My personal opinion is that I'd rather watch Chase Hughes remove sock fluff from his pinky toes than watch or support ear fluff, using his name in capitals to get clicks. I'm not exactly sure what the agenda behind this video is. All I know is that the behavior panel has been labeled as the best body language team in the world. Just because Chase is an entrepreneur and made it to the top makes lesser achievers seek out BS to make them sound knowledgeable. Chase rocks his specialist field, and will I not judge a man who followed many roads to find his passion? Isn't that what we all have done? The minute you can outachieve him, I might listen to all the waffling. He knows nothing about Chase's books and training published after 2017. He is a troll and clown. Chase Hughes, aside from his vast experience, exudes authenticity because he is. Any person with intelligence can see you are attempting to character assassinate someone who cannot be assassinated. He is way out of your league and has the sort of charisma that most can only dream of possessing. Someone said, completely agree. Perhaps you were just jealous. I don't see a whole line of your qualifications listed here either. And I certainly don't think you come up to the level of a U.S. Navy chief, never mind all his work since then. I'll make this short. Chase teaches how to get what you want. The girl, money, fit, degrees. We all want that. He can also read people and show you how to. Heart emoji. You can be an entrepreneur and still have talent. I think Chase is genuinely talented, but didn't want to be held back by lack of paper qualifications. In show business, we say, fake it till you make it. I've been watching the behavior panel for a number of years and think Chase has a lot of knowledge and wisdom, and he frequently quotes specific academic research. Someone said, you know nothing about Chase's books and training published after 2017. Huge error on your part. His skills are based on military training and experience. The services are not required, nor do they disclose detail. By the way, his later works in consulting are a part of his business entities. His companies provide goods and services and provide customer service. The first websites are likely pre-incorporation. If you have current complaints, consult your service agreement. You're pushing a narrative that's out of date, and arguably you are a troll. Exposed for what? I really like the guy and think this isn't fair. Here's to free speech, y'all. Have fun. I'm actually taking one of his courses right now, which is way more fun than this video. Go Chase. Someone responds, I'm definitely Team Chase. That was from someone who's left maybe 20 plus comments on this in this comment section. Bias and jealousy. You haven't told us anything that seems very major. I believe a lot of us who just watch this sense that you are biased. There is something about you I don't like, and whatever it is that I don't like about you, I would bet that many others felt similar as I do. Grow up. Are you okay? This is a sincere question with no malicious intent. I know financially you're not okay, but emotionally and physically, are you all right? A couple of weeks ago, you put out a shameless cry for help from failed podcast host and author. This is referencing to a kind of joking post I put up a few weeks ago. They continue. Although I appreciate all your other videos as they make it easy to establish a baseline for you. Failure and shame are heavy burdens to carry for anybody, and sometimes cries for help turn into desperate acts. There are ways to work through shame and failure while still maintaining your integrity as a human being. Best wishes to you. Someone said, I have never seen or heard Chase Hughes describe himself to be what you are saying, not a single time. Someone else says, I really disagree with what you're doing. I'm sure there are better people you can devastate. Or is your object to pick on the weak? With his current medical problem, you probably thought he wouldn't have the strength or energy to fight you on this. You are the lowest of the low. Barbara, another account, chimed in, Amen, this guy's the worst. Another person said, Chase was basically a child adolescent at that time. He has grown into an incredible writer and a friend to many. Is there nothing in your past you're not proud of and prefer it not to be shared? He was merely finding his way in the world. Judge a man today by his actions and behaviors today. Someone said, keep talking. I'm baselining you. Someone said, hi, have you read his ops manual? And then later in that same thread said, agreed. That's why nobody has answered the question. The guy in this video is a fraud, in my opinion. They continued, you do understand the situations he's been involved in. Incredibly high-pressured scenarios, talking people into committing treason against their own country. This requires a huge amount of influence and persuasion. I'd love to see you have a discussion with him and challenge him on this stuff. It really wouldn't go well for you. Someone says, when a guy gets too successful, someone waits in the wings to try and discredit him. Why is this necessary? Instead, adopt some of his tactics and become super successful also. Personally, I see this video just showing how he's always been an entrepreneur and how he's continued to evolve over time. Unfortunately, self-promotion, marketing, and sales are always cringe and feel like a scam. The people who are knowledgeable and don't play the game get dismissed and overlooked. Someone says, I didn't see your qualifications to criticize, nor any specific criticisms, except maybe that vague dig into the behavioral table of elements and that it looks complicated. Read his books and understand how it works. Top law firms rely on his skills. The military did for 20 years. He actually wrote the book. He was the CEO of an intelligence boat as a chief petty officer, E7, which is unheard of. He has certificates about brain neurology and speaks quite intelligently about it in behavior panel videos. Those guys would call him on it if it were BS. This video was weak, and it's a strong accusation to level fraud. Someone says, are you kidding? First of all, it's cues, not clues. What an effing fraud. One comment from Melissa Runt, who I was told is a content moderator for Behavior Panel. She said, oh, I found the Losers Club. Stop using Chase's name to get subs. Get a real job and stop asking for money using his name. It must suck to be you. Someone said, I think you're just jealous. Someone said, this guy is a weirdo. I love Chase in the behavioral panel. Big element of jealousy here. What a joke. Someone else said, I hope no one ever looks at the younger me this closely. I've done some embarrassing things and said a load of BS at various times, especially when trying to get a job, /man/client/ free drink. Luckily, no one cares. Smiley face. But if my oldest brother is stalking me and found this, at least I'm not as bad as you. You are in an embarrassment league all of your own. Ha 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 ha. My question is why? Why bother with this expose? And they continued, I find your content a bit shallow and childish, entertaining but not deep. Someone else said, you should join a Chase Hughes class to learn some charisma, just saying. Someone else said, I think someone here is jealous. And they continued later in that paragraph, this guy is so jealous, it is sickening. Someone else said, jealous much? Someone else was angry that I sent them a message about this, and they said, I got a weird, slanderous, aggressive LinkedIn message from this guy about Chase, linking me to this hit piece. Anyone know about the author? What led to this? Someone else said, hypocrisy, yours, not your subjects, is outstanding. You exhibit bias through ill-advised sarcasm. The entirety of your presentation belies considerable envy. Perhaps you should ponder your motivations. In essence, sir, take heed your insecurity is showing. Barbara, who has made many comments on this thread, said, but this guy's steepling shows he's an expert. Someone else said, you ought to try some of his techniques. Chase was born drop-dead gorgeous with a brilliantly original mind. With those two things alone, he got this far, and the 20 years he spent working in military prisons taught him what he needed to know. Someone else said, I am sensing from your body language that someone is still pissed his presence was declined for the behavior panel. Envy much? Someone else said, I trust Chase. He's very knowledgeable and shares a ton of great information in my opinion. I guess everyone has haters, and he's probably not too worried about anybody going after him. They continued on, I'm sure there are some videos out there that explain why Spielberg is a terrible director. Someone else said, I believe Chase Hughes is a Manchurian Candidate or Jason Bourne type of person. The fact that he is so vague about his past makes me think he used to off people for a living. His brain issues might stem from being constantly sent on missions and having his memory erased after each job. Dave Williams says, what makes someone make videos like this? Envy, jealousy, hatred, or something else negative? Also, everyone has stuff in their past that they would not do today. What skeletons do you have in your closet? Someone else said, GFY. Someone else said, while you're obviously reading a script, your own behaviors come through. Some people will be paying attention, just saying. Someone else said, what is wrong with you? If you don't like Chase or the behavior panel, don't watch it. Why do you spend your time trying to undermine someone else's reputation? She continues later in that paragraph, I'm sick of haters. What is wrong with our society? Leave others alone, whether it's Chase Hughes or anyone else. Maybe your wife left you for someone like Chase. Well, that was fun. Hit the subscribe button on my YouTube channel to stay in the loop about all breaking news related to Chase Hughes. This has been the People Who Read People podcast with me, jealous hater Zachary Elwood. You can learn more about this podcast at behavior-podcast.com. Music by Small Skies.